Have you ever felt like the world is designed for every type of person except you? Imagine this scene. You're at a social gathering, surrounded by laughter and animated conversations, but instead of feeling energized, every minute that passes is like someone slowly draining the battery of your soul. While others seem to flourish in social chaos, you find yourself counting the minutes until you can escape to the safety of your personal space. And then comes that familiar voice in your head. You're shy, you're weird, you don't fit in. But what if I told you that you're not shy at all? What if what you've interpreted as a weakness is actually a completely different way of experiencing and processing the world? For decades, our society has built a devastating myth that there's only one correct way to be human. And that way involves being extroverted, talkative, spontaneous, and socially hungry. This myth has condemned millions of people to live feeling defective, as if they were born with some kind of social factory error. Shyness, we've been taught, is something that must be overcome, corrected, cured. It's a barrier between you and the full life you're supposedly meant to be living. But here's the truth most will never tell you. Shyness and introversion are not the same thing, and what you've called shyness, your whole life might simply be your natural and legitimate way of navigating a world that doesn't understand your nature. The confusion between shyness and introversion is one of the most silent tragedies of our time. Shyness is fear, social anxiety, a conditioned response to perceived judgment from others. But introversion is something completely different. It's a neurological preference for processing information deeply and internally before expressing it to the world. While shyness is born from fear, introversion is born from the innate wisdom of your nervous system that understands quality, surpasses quantity, that depth is more valuable than surface, and that silence often contains more truth than 1,000 empty words. Carl Jung, the pioneer who coined these terms, never intended introversion to be a limitation. For Jung, introverts were the explorers of the internal world, the archaeologists of the human soul, those who venture into the unexplored territories of the psyche, where the deepest ideas and most transformative understandings are born. Jung himself was an introvert, and from that introversion emerged the ideas that revolutionized our understanding of the human mind. However, we live in an era that has profoundly misinterpreted this gift, transforming a strength into a supposed weakness. The first sign that you're a misunderstood introvert is that your energy works inversely to the rest of the world. While others charge up with social interaction, you discharge. Not because you don't like people or because you have social phobia, but because your nervous system processes every social stimulus with an intensity that the extroverted world simply doesn't understand. Every casual conversation is for you what a complete symphony is to the ears. Rich, complex, full of nuances and textures that others don't even perceive. That's why, after what others consider a brief social encounter, you need hours or even days to process all the emotional, energetic, and psychological information you've absorbed. This difference isn't a flaw, it's sophistication. Your mind functions like a precision instrument in a world that values mass production tools. While others process information socially, out loud, through constant interaction, you process internally, creating deep connections between ideas, perceiving patterns others overlook, developing understandings that can only emerge from contemplative silence. This is why many of history's great thinkers, artists, writers, and innovators have been introverts: Einstein, Jung, Proust, Virginia Woolf, Gandhi. They didn't triumph despite their introversion, but precisely because of it. The second transformative realization is understanding that your preference for deep conversations over superficial chatter isn't intellectual snobbery, but spiritual hunger. Introverts don't avoid small talk because they think they're superior. They avoid it because these conversations don't nourish them. It's as if your soul has a specific appetite. It needs substance, authenticity, real connection. Conversations about the weather, casual gossip, ritualized social interactions are for you what fast food is for someone seeking real nutrition. They don't just fail to satisfy you, they leave you hungrier than before. This understanding changes everything. You're not antisocial, you're selectively social. You're not weird for preferring a deep conversation with one person over a party with 30. You're wise. Your time and energy are precious resources, and you have the innate right to invest them where they generate the greatest emotional and spiritual return. Society has taught you to feel guilty about this selectivity, but the truth is that this conscious discrimination is an elevated form of self-knowledge and self-respect. The third revelation is perhaps the most liberating. Your need for solitude isn't isolation, it's spiritual recharging. In a culture that has pathologized solitude, that has confused it with loneliness, we've lost sight of a fundamental truth. Solitude is the place where your true self emerges without the distortions of external expectations. It's in solitude where you process the day's experiences, where you integrate the emotional information you've absorbed, where your most authentic ideas take shape. Solitude for you isn't the absence of connection, it's the purest presence of your essence. This need for internal space doesn't mean you're less capable of deep connections. In fact, it means exactly the opposite. Because you process relationships so deeply, because every human interaction has such impact on your nervous system, you're capable of forming bonds of an intensity and authenticity that many extroverts never experience. Your friendships may be less numerous, but they're deeper. Your conversations may be less frequent, but they're more meaningful. Your love may be expressed more quietly, but it's felt more intensely. Here's the insight that changes everything. You don't need to become an extrovert to be successful or happy. What you need is to fully embrace your introverted nature and learn to navigate an extroverted world without betraying your essence. This requires a different type of courage than what society preaches, not the courage to constantly leave your comfort zone, but the courage to honor your comfort zone as a sacred place where your particular genius can flourish. The first step toward this transformation is rewriting the narrative you have about yourself. Every time your mind says, "I'm shy," consciously correct it. "I'm introspective." When you think "I'm not good at socializing," replace it with "I'm selective with my connections." When you judge yourself for needing alone time, remind yourself, "I'm recharging my energy so I can give my best." This isn't positive self-deception, it's descriptive precision. You're learning to see yourself through the correct lens instead of the distorted lens society has imposed on you. The second step is establishing clear and non-negotiable energetic boundaries. Your energy is your most valuable resource, and you have the absolute right to protect it. This means learning to say no to social events that don't nourish you, to conversations that drain you, to people who demand your energy without giving anything in return. It means creating recharging rituals, sacred moments in your day where you can be completely alone, completely silent, completely connected with yourself. It could be a morning walk, half an hour of reading before sleep, or simply 5 minutes of conscious breathing between activities. The third step is finding your authentic way to contribute to the world. Introverts don't contribute less, they contribute differently. While extroverts often lead from the front, speaking loudly and acting quickly, introverts lead from depth, thinking carefully and acting with precision. Your superpower isn't the ability to fill a room with your presence, it's the ability to fill a mind with a transformative idea, to touch a soul with a perfectly chosen word, to create something lasting from the stillness of your contemplation. Recognize that your most valuable contributions often happen in private, the one-on-one conversation where you really help someone see something important about themselves, the creative project you develop in solitude but that impacts thousands, the idea that emerges from your silent reflection but changes an entire team's direction. The world desperately needs what introverts offer: depth in an era of superficiality, contemplation in an era of reactivity, quality in an era obsessed with quantity. The fourth step is learning to communicate your needs without apologizing for them. You don't need to explain why you prefer sending an email instead of making a phone call, why you need time to think before giving your opinion in a meeting, or why you prefer meeting people one-on-one instead of in large groups. These aren't limitations that require justification. They're simply how you operate optimally. When you communicate your needs with clarity and confidence, you not only respect yourself, but you educate others about how to work with you more effectively. The final transformation comes when you stop seeing your introversion as something that needs to be overcome and start seeing it as something that needs to be cultivated. Instead of forcing yourself toward an extroverted version of yourself, you start deepening into the most authentic version of who you already are. You develop your capacity for deep listening. You cultivate your ability to ask questions that go to the heart of things. You strengthen your natural talent for creating safe spaces where others can be vulnerable and authentic. You start noticing that people feel different in your presence, that your conversations have a quality that's rare in this accelerated world. People seek your company not because you're the most fun or the most dynamic, but because in your presence they feel they can be real. They can lower their guard. They can explore parts of themselves they usually keep hidden. Your introversion becomes a gift you offer the world, the gift of genuine attention, of authentic presence, of safe emotional space. Here's the beautiful paradox. When you finally embrace your introverted nature completely, when you stop trying to be someone you're not, that's when you really start to shine. Not with the extroverted light society expects, but with your own unique light, more subtle, deeper, more lasting. It's a light that doesn't scream for attention, but once people perceive it, they can't forget it. Your journey isn't about becoming less introverted. It's about becoming more fully yourself. It's about finding the spaces, people, activities, and forms of expression that honor your nature instead of fighting against it. It's about building a life that works for who you really are, not for who you think you should be. The world doesn't need another poorly imitated extrovert. The world needs authentic introverts who have found the way to be completely themselves. It needs your unique perspective, your particular way of processing reality, your special ability to see what others overlook. It needs your quietness in the midst of noise, your depth in the midst of superficiality, your contemplation in the midst of reactivity. So the next time someone tells you that you need to get out of your comfort zone more, remember that your comfort zone isn't a prison. It's your laboratory, your studio, your personal temple where your particular genius can manifest. The next time you feel guilty for needing alone time, remember that solitude isn't isolation, it's connection with yourself. And the next time you think you're shy, remember the truth, you're not shy. You're an introvert, and that's not something you need to correct. It's something you need to celebrate. Your introversion is your disguised strength, your misunderstood superpower, your unique gift to the world. Don't let a society that doesn't understand your nature convince you there's something wrong with you. There's something magnificent about you, something the world needs more than ever. All you need to do is find the courage to be completely, authentically, gloriously yourself. If this message has touched something deep in you, if you've recognized your own story in these words, then you've already taken the first step toward the most important transformation, acceptance of your true nature. Share this perspective with someone who might also need to hear it. And remember, in a world that constantly tells you to change, the most revolutionary act is deciding that you're already enough, exactly as you are.